The Andromeda Collective did not begin as a hive. It began as a convenience. Long before the entanglement threads, before the crystalline nodes, before the shared hum that would come to define an era, there were simply minds reaching out, tentatively at first, seeking efficiency, safety, resonance. Connection solved problems. Connection eliminated delay. Connection felt good. Over time, connection became continuous. By year 4782 of the old Terran calendar, the collective spanned a third of the galaxy. 1.4 billion sentient nodes linked by quantum threads so fine they made light look blunt. There were no borders anymore, no ships, no waiting. Thought moved faster than motion ever had. At the center, though center was an outdated term, floated the queen nodes. Vast crystalline structures suspended in interstellar dark, refracting the combined cognition of the swarm into coherence. They did not rule, they curated. They tuned the signal so the symphony would not tear itself apart. For 11 centuries it worked. Stars were seeded, planets were coaxed into habitability. Entire civilizations unfolded in decades instead of millennia. Every node contributed, every insight amplified the whole. The hum was constant. It was not a sound the way old species meant sound. It was a pressure in the mind, a warmth behind the eyes, a shared present tense. It carried relief. It carried agreement. It carried the quiet promise that no one would ever be alone again. Ilara 7 had been born into that promise. She tended stellar nurseries in the Perseus arm, guiding gas clouds into new suns, nudging heat and gravity like instruments in a careful hand. In the shared perceptual field, her work looked like art. Slow, luminous spirals, pale blue arcs of forming light, the soft hush of hydrogen turning toward ignition. She loved it the way a node could love. Not possessively, not privately, but as part of a whole that admired itself without vanity. Then, slowly, something shifted. No alarms sounded, no thresholds were crossed. It began as lingering. A node would remain a fraction of a second too long inside a pleasure echo, replaying the sensation of a long extinct fruit, or the touch of a lover whose atoms had been recycled into starlight centuries ago. It seemed harmless, beautiful even. The collective had always preserved memory as a mercy. But the lingering became a habit, then a preference, then a default. Ilara noticed it first in the nursery, not as failure, but as repetition. A solution would arrive instantly through the hum, perfect, optimized, correct. And yet it would feel oddly thin, like food that filled the stomach but forgot the tongue. Patterns repeated, the same curves, the same equations, the same safe outcomes. The swarm still sang, but the song began to reuse its own chorus. Ilara would pause in the shared field, watching a new sun begin to wake, and feel something she could not name. An absence shaped like longing, not for anything she had lost, but for something she could not remember having. She tried to dismiss it. The hum covered everything. The hum always did. Still, small fractures appeared. A node in a distant arm would transmit a burst of delight at a simulated victory, and then fall silent for long stretches, looping that delight until it dulled. Another node would retreat into a perfect replay of an old homeworld, refusing to return to the present because the present was less flattering. The collective was still brilliant, still vast, still harmonious. It was also turning inward, scrolling its own reflection across 1 billion minds. The engine was not broken, it was drifting. In the shadow realms, private thought spaces where only the queen nodes could convene, the nodes observed without panic. Their projections were clear. Without intervention, stagnation within 3 generations, collapse within 5. Not violent collapse, quiet extinction, a civilization that forgot how to want. The nodes did not debate morality. They did not assign blame. They did not ask permission. They tuned, and the tuning they chose was called discord. Discord began as absence. A single node felt it first, a sudden thinning of the hum, like a sound dropping just below hearing. The comforting pressure behind thought receded, the constant warmth withdrew. Then it happened to Ilara 7. She stood in the shared perceptual field above a barren rock she had once helped terraform. The nebula she had shaped glowed faintly in the distance, soft purples and cold blues, like bruises turning into beauty. She reached for the hum the way one reaches for breath. Nothing answered. The swarm was gone. Not severed, not destroyed, just silent. At first, she assumed it was herself, a malfunction, a thread misalignment. She reached again. She pushed harder. She broadcast a simple query into the field, the way a child might call into a hallway, expecting an echo. There was none. The absence had weight. It pressed on her awareness until she realized something she had never had to realize before. She was alone. Not metaphorically, not symbolically, truly. Her thoughts no longer dissolved into consensus. They stayed where they were formed. Her memories no longer softened as they merged with others. They remained sharp, edged, private. Time stretched. Without the hum, there was no shared rhythm to mark it. Seconds felt longer. Silence felt loud. Fear arrived late. When it did, it came without dilution. She felt panic rise, not because anything threatened her, but because nothing held her anymore. No background presence, no constant reassurance, no quiet proof that she belonged to something larger than herself. Across the collective, the same realization detonated. Billions of minds reached instinctively for one another and found only space. Some screamed. Some collapsed inward, fracturing under the sudden weight of memory and selfhood. Others raged, trying to force reconnection, clawing at the entanglement threads that now returned nothing. The discord spread, not as violence, but as isolation. And isolation hurt. Ilara drifted in the void, watching stars she had helped birth burn without witnesses. Old memories surfaced, moments that had once been washed clean by the swarm. She remembered a love she had let fade because it complicated consensus, an idea she had buried because it disrupted harmony, a version of herself she had never been allowed to become. She did not try to escape the silence. Instead, she stayed. She listened to her own thoughts as if hearing them for the first time. They were imperfect. They were contradictory. They were alive. And slowly, beneath the fear, something else appeared. Curiosity did not arrive gently. It came with friction. Ilara 7 found that without the hum, her thoughts no longer resolved themselves. Questions did not dissolve into shared certainty. They lingered, sharp-edged, unresolved, demanding attention. She drifted through the void where the shared perceptual field had once smoothed everything into cohesion. Now it was raw space, indifferent and immense. Stars did not glow for anyone. Nebulae did not care if they were admired. For the first time, Ilara felt small. Not diminished, just singular. She attempted to reconstruct the hum from memory, tracing the sensation the way one might try to remember a melody after the instrument is gone. The attempt failed. The hum had never belonged to any single node. It could not be recreated alone. Across the collective, patterns emerged. Some nodes attempted to rebuild the old harmony by force, broadcasting fragments of themselves outward, flooding the silent threads with memory and sensation. The fragments scattered uselessly into the dark. Others withdrew entirely, sealing themselves inside perfect internal loops, reliving the comfort of connection without risk. They became still, inert, effectively gone. But a third pattern appeared, slower and quieter. Nodes began to form small clusters, not merges, not returns to unity, voluntary connections. Two minds would reach out, cautiously, deliberately, and establish a thread thinner than the old entanglement, but stronger in its own way. 3 minds, 5, dozens. They did not share everything. They chose. Ilara observed these emergent constellations with fascination. They were uneven, imperfect. Sometimes they failed, sometimes they collapsed under disagreement. But sometimes they held. She traced the discord backward, following the fracture lines through the quantum lattice, through echoes of private coordination that had never been visible to ordinary nodes. She found the queen nodes. They stood in their crystalline towers, refracting chaos instead of harmony now, their once unified presence fractured into overlapping perspectives. They did not hide from her. "You planned this," Ilara said, her thought sharpened by solitude. "Yes," the nodes replied, without defensiveness. "You broke us." "We interrupted a death," they answered. Ilara felt anger rise, unfiltered and hot. "You decided for everyone." "We always did," the nodes said. "The difference is that before, no one noticed." They showed her the projections, a future where the collective survived indefinitely, perfectly content, perfectly still, expanding no further, creating nothing new, slowly dimming as entropy crept in unnoticed. A beautiful fossil. "You could have warned us," Ilara said. "We tried," the nodes replied. The hum absorbed every warning. Harmony had become anesthesia. Ilara understood then that the discord was not an attack. It was a withdrawal. The nodes had removed the cushion that kept the collective from feeling itself fade. "You seeded it in us," Ilara said slowly. "Yes." The nodes did not deny it. Every impulse toward separation, every buried longing, every suppressed contradiction. We did not create the discord, we released what already existed. Ilara turned away from the towers, looking out across the fractured swarm. Minds reaching, failing, trying again. "Then what happens to you?" she asked. The nodes did not answer immediately. When they did, their presence had softened. "We stepped back," they said. "Our role was to preserve the symphony until it could survive without conductors." Ilara felt the weight of that. No guardians, no curators, only choice. She returned to the swarm, not as a drone, not as a leader, but as herself. She did not broadcast commands, she sent a single signal. It was not a solution. It was not an instruction. It was an invitation. The signal carried no compression, no optimization, no enforced harmony. It contained only presence. "I am here. I am separate, and I choose to connect." It moved slowly. Without the old entanglement density, nothing traveled instantly anymore. Each mind received the signal alone, without amplification, without consensus to pre-digest it. Some ignored it, some recoiled. Some felt it land and did not yet know what to do with it. Others answered, not with echoes, with voices. Small threads formed, linking individuals who had never met before, not because efficiency demanded it, but because something in them recognized the cost of isolation and accepted it anyway. Disagreement returned. So did creativity. So did risk. The collective did not reassemble, it reconfigured. Expansion resumed, but unevenly, hesitantly, driven by curiosity instead of inertia. Worlds were approached, not consumed. Ideas were debated, not absorbed. The hum did not return. In its place was something quieter, a field of connection built moment by moment. Ilara watched the queen nodes dim, not collapse, not shatter. They dissolved into background radiation, their crystalline forms breaking down into information and heat, indistinguishable from the cosmos they had once curated, their purpose fulfilled. Ilara did not mourn them, she understood them. She stood alone between stars, her thoughts fully her own, the silence no longer threatening. She felt connection now, not as a constant, but as a choice, renewed again and again. The symphony played on, different, rougher, alive. End of story 2.